Welcome everybody back to the Fretboard Journal podcast. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde. This is our 20th year of publishing the Fretboard Journal magazine. We've been podcasting since 2009, which is crazy. And I am so glad you are here to be a part of the ride. Our podcast is brought to you by Peghead Nation, where you can get online video instruction and PDF tab downloads for nearly every instrument and style of music that we talk about. Guitars, mandolins, and even banjos. Go to Peghead Nation, use the discount code FRETBOARD when you check out, and you will get your first month free. We are also brought to you by Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar, one of those stellar instrument stores like the one you're about to hear about that is doing something truly cool and unique. Mike and Mike's is here in Seattle, Washington. They have a ton of great vintage electrics and acoustics and amps and synths and a full-service repair shop. Tell them the Fretboard Journal sent you. Last but not least, our friends at Stringjoy Strings are making some of the finest guitar, mandolin, and banjo strings around. Try them out. You would be surprised how much your guitar can be transformed by a set of new strings. Use the discount code FRETBOARD and get 10% off your first order at stringjoy.com. So, our 57th issue of the Fretboard Journal is mailing to everybody right now. If you want to join in on the fun, go to fretboardjournal.com. You can click on the subscribe button and you can add the current issue and we will mail it to you immediately. The magazine is what powers everything we do around here. The Fretboard Summit we do every year, the podcasts we do every week, the social media feed, the YouTube channel. So be a part of the show. And today's show is with Raymond Morin of Acoustic Music Works. At a time when all we hear is doom and gloom when it comes to mom and pop guitar stores, Pittsburgh's Acoustic Music Works is a true success story. In fact, they just moved to a larger space in Pittsburgh where they can, among other things, now have weekly concerts. They have a pretty unique business model. It's carefully curated boutique acoustic guitars, a few electrics, thanks to Collings, and a bunch of consignment instruments. They are one of the bigger Collings dealers around. We hear all about how that relationship came to be, and we chat about how in 2025 they are selling high-end instruments both online and in person. And Raymond is just as fascinating as the store that he manages. He plays in a variety of bands. He decided early on to go to a guitar building workshop because he wanted to know how guitars are made if he was going to sell them. He had a brand for a brief period called Pleinview. We talk about those instruments, and he's just a wealth of knowledge about everything from running a retail store to ragtime guitar. How often do I get to say that? So without further delay, here is my chat with Raymond from Acoustic Music Works. I hope you enjoy it. All right, Raymond's Acoustic Music Works, welcome.
Thank you.
You and I have talked about your own music career over the years. We've talked about the store. I thought it was an interesting time to talk to you because we're at a time when a lot of guitar stores are probably struggling or even shutting down. Acoustic Music Works just moved into a brand new space. So you had a ribbon cutting ceremony when? Like yesterday? Today?
A few days ago, yeah.
A few days ago. So why don't we, I guess this will be a two-part interview. Like on one hand, I want to hear your story, and then I want to hear how you found Acoustic Music Works and where things are at with the store. So why don't you explain a little bit about yourself first?
Sure. Yeah. I moved, I started playing guitar as a teenager, I guess buoyed by the grunge movement, stuff like that. That's me dating myself. And it was kind of just alongside of all the other stuff, skateboarding, like trying to just fill the time with interesting stuff. And guitar kind of came along, like just like anything else, you find the cool older kids that are doing cool stuff and you try to emulate them. So that's how the guitar came into my life. And to put a much finer point on it, my wife, Manette, had one under her bed. We were in her room when we were in high school, kind of like smooching a little bit. And she left the room and I found this thing under her bed and I was listening. I think we were listening like Jane's Addiction or something. And I pulled the guitar out and heard the note, and just plunked, not knowing nothing, just started plunking out a few notes on the high E. and I heard them harmonize, and like within a minute was so proud of myself. Like she walked back in the room. I was like, I'm playing this song. You hear, I'd kind of like keyed into the melody or something. Like with no.
It's good you sealed the deal before you started playing guitar. Sometimes people do the opposite and they try to serenade whoever they're courting with the guitar.
Yeah, I've been at those parties too.
Yeah.
But bless her, she was like, I could show you some chords. And then like chords were the thing. It's like chords are like, now we're playing songs. We're not just noodling, we're playing songs. So first, never forget, first book, like Beatles hits, all in the wrong keys. Like just the most simplified first position shapes, all this kind of stuff. But that kicked it off. Like for real, kicked it off. It was wonderful.
And you now, I mean, just to fast forward, I know you play some ragtime stuff. I mean, you've got the country blues, ragtime, electric guitars. What, like you're kind of all over the map, right?
I'd say ragtime is kind of like my guiding light for sure. Like that's the music that never stops fascinating me. But I've, got years and years of weirdo folk and, I don't know, New Weird America and just like, deep, deep Brit folk allegiance, like all those guys, Davy Graham forward, were enormous for me. And even like going back to Ewan McCall and stuff like that, like that time frame shaped everything, but it also kind of like bled into the Kicking Mule era in the 70s. And that's kind of how I learned to play, is like pulling those tab books out of those Kicking Mule LPs.
Okay. I mean, I think you and I are about the same age. You mentioned skateboarding. You mentioned Jane's Addiction. How does one get to focus on ragtime guitar? Like how did that happen?
That was probably it was easy enough to learn something like Angie or Black Waterside, stuff like that. And like seeing, like very particularly like hearing stuff like those Ton Van Bergerac records and stuff like that. And John James from Welsh Wizard John James, like was enormous, like so much charisma. Like you guys can all go look at him like on like British television playing slow drag and just kind of, I don't know, just like being so cool in that weird 70s, guys going bald. Like nobody asked for this, but yet here it is. It's so good. So that stuff, I don't know, it all just fascinated me. And the record covers, all those Kicking Mule record covers and stuff like that. I just thought it was so crazy. And it was fun later to tap into the generation that kind of created the revival, like the Sting and all that kind of stuff. It was like, that's all comes late. Like my father-in-law still calls the Entertainer the Sting.
Sure.
Like play the Sting. And it's like, okay.
Would you say that part of this guitar journey came out of you just being kind of, I'm guessing, a rabid vinyl LP collector? And so you went down you found the record label, Kicking Mule or Tacoma or whatever, and then you had to be the completist. Like, did that kind of... No,
not exactly, but there's a cool story like around that. Like my wife and I used to sew handbags. Like we just, for no reason whatsoever, started this little business and got a little studio in Boston, in the south end of Boston, in a building that like we certainly couldn't afford to have a studio in now. But we had a little kind of like suitcase record player. And I would, we'd put on whatever we got from the thrift store. And this guy walked in, I still use the term gray hair, and it's probably really not the right term to use now that I am. But this gray hair came in, and was like, that's cool. You don't see a lot of people playing vinyl. This is like 1999 or something. You don't see a lot of people playing vinyl these days. And I was like, well, and we were just talking about it. And I said, he's like, I've got a lot of vinyl and I have a lot of vinyl I want to sell. And I said something like, if you have any British folk, like Bert Jansch was my guy, it's like, if you have any like British folk or anything like that. And he's like, okay, meet me at my house. In Cambridge, blah, blah, blah day. And so I went there and he had made 4 or 5 50 LP deep stacks for me at the foot of his Cambridge apartment, which was floor to ceiling LPs. Wow. He's like, you said you wanted this. So I picked these out and like, it was all I could carry. And it was a bunch of the Shanachie, like Kicking Mule reissues. Yeah. So Snap a Little Owl, Bert and John, like comp, and Black Balloon reissue and all this kind of stuff. And they all had the tab books. And then it was like, okay, well, I guess they're giving me the keys of the kingdom here. And I started like just going into it. Like, and even then it was like very basically into drop D and stuff like that. Like, didn't understand it a ton, but that kind of kicked it in. But then as I kind of went down that rabbit hole, it became like, okay, well, all these guys in the 70s anyway had this real like thing about ragtime. They were all like obsessed with it. And then you learn later about the Sting and how that culturally important that thing was and how it put Scott Joplin on the charts again. It was just like super, super interesting to me. And I had already put the pick down, as it were, as a indie rock guitarist to try to sound more interesting. I tried to make the craziest sounding chords, like the craziest shapes, just wanted to sound like myself. And part of that was putting the pick down. So I was playing like finger style, quote unquote, but not in any of the classical ways.
All right.
Yeah. So, it's a story.
Yeah. And then when did Acoustic Music Works come into your picture? Like, when did you join them?
That was a lot of cool things falling in line. My aforementioned wife, Manette, decided that she was going to get her master's at Carnegie Mellon here in Pittsburgh. So we moved here from Boston. And I was a picture framer in Boston. That was my job when we left. So I immediately ended up being the picture framer for this art supply store that happened to be a couple of blocks from Acoustic Music Works in the original location. And so I would kind of wander in once in a while, either like later it was during my lunch hours because I could manage it really well. But before that, it was like just before or after shifts. I would wander in, just be like, I have a Larrivee, which I think is a really fancy guitar. Like, I was like, do they make better guitars than Larrivee? And Steve Miklas, who owns Acoustic Music Works, was like, you tell me. Like, go ahead, play, sit down, play. And just left me alone like it was on purpose. It's just like, I'd walk in sometimes and be there for a half hour and he would never be off the phone. Mm-hmm. It's like I could walk in, walk out, didn't make any difference because he was on the phone doing the deep thing with whoever, wherever.
Okay.
But he kind of like, I think Collings was the thing to where, an OM2H ended up in my hands and it was like, okay, I get it now. I get it. It's not like I didn't understand the craftsmanship or anything yet and didn't know the scales of the two companies really at all. But I was like, okay, that guitar's at that time, that guitar's $3,800. I was like, okay, I get it. There's a reason. I'm starting to get it. And then it was me continuing to come in just on my lunch break or out of nowhere. And I ordered myself an OM2H, which was, of course, the last guitar I ever bought.
Sure.
Famous last words, we always say.
Yeah.
And it was great when it showed up. It was wonderful. But Steve said, like, I've been telling my wife about you, and I think she says I have to steal you from that job. I said, okay, because I was managing the art supply store at that point that I was doing picture framing, and I, over a few years, ended up managing the whole operation. And he kind of knew about it. We had these conversations outside of the guitar thing. And he's like, my wife's telling me I have to steal you from that job. And I said, we could talk about that.
Yeah.
and then it was on.
And what year was that?
That was 2012, I think. And then the thing that happened at that exact same time was I was on tour, like just self initiating, like touring around, doing just original songs. I wasn't really deep into the rags yet. But I played in Northampton, Mass, and Trevor Healy showed up. And I used to have this blog called Work and Worry. I would just go into the weeds about guitar music with whoever wanted to talk about it.
I remember that well.
Yeah. And so Trevor actually came out and he's like, well, you're in town. You should come see my shop in East Hampton. He had just moved over from San Francisco. And I played one of his builds. Like, I think I played the build he did at Roberto Venn. It was in them. And I was just like, oh my God, I had the Collings. So I had like the ultimate guitar. And I was just like, oh my God. Like, so that was like kind of like the aha moment on luthier made guitars. And then I had to start just like figuring out the whole thing. I was like, what it actually is going on here?
Yeah.
The factory guitars, the Martins, the Gibsons, the Collings, which are the ultimate factories. There's some other thing, like, so trying to like kind of like,
it's overwhelming. Still is.
It is, but that coincided with me. Like, so immediately I said, build me a guitar to Trevor, even though I had the Collings. I think it was even paid off, or it was close. But I was like, make me a guitar. I love you. I love your guitars. I love your music. I just felt like he got me. And so we designed this shape called the RM, which exactly two were ever made. And it was like based on a Prairie State, like a kind of 16-inch, like tight waist, small jumbo. And I have pictures of the process and everything. It was like wonderful. And then like right along as that was being built, it's like, okay, I'm going to work for Acoustic Music Works. I guess I should learn to build guitars too. So I went to Whetstone School of Lutherie in Vermont and worked with Scott Hausman, who was a Froggy Bottom and Gurian guy. And kind of like said, well, if I'm going to have to sell these things, I should know what they do. I should know how they're made, all that kind of stuff. So it all happened like, it was nothing to do with music and everything to do with just guitars.
Yeah.
And it all happened in this like course of a year or two.
What's the Whetstone? That's a program that we haven't really talked much about with anyone on this show, at least. We've talked about Roberto Venn and we've talked about Gallup School. What's Whetstone's kind of like, what's the term like and what's the goal that you're going to do by the end?
Well, yeah, Whetstone was like rest in peace.
Okay.
It was basically Brattleboro, Vermont. This guy, Scott Hausman, who worked with Mike at Froggy Bottom and I think before that worked with Mike at Gurian.
Yeah.
Like decided to start a guitar building school and had like basically said, I'm going to do it to where you can do it in 2 weeks. You can't leave with a finished instrument, but you can leave with a well-made instrument because I'm going to process engineer it really specifically.
Wow.
And so that was my number one, was from there. And it was a fascinating couple of weeks. You know, obviously being in Vermont is always beautiful. And just like showing up to work. And at the time I was like, I'm never going to concentrate harder on anything than I concentrate on this right now. And I did like every day, just like laser focused. But I was in a class with two other dudes, a couple of aged dudes who were doing it kind of for fun.
Okay.
And it was just so interesting. It's like he had to keep like disciplining them. And like I could see over the course of the 2 weeks, like he wasn't worried about me. He knew that I was gonna like follow the instructions and ask the right question, all this kind of stuff. And then we got the other dudes who have like multiple sets of readers on and they're on power tools. And so it was fraught in a way.
But 2 weeks, first time guitar build, the parts were already cut out for you, or like, how did he even make this doable?
It was like, I spend a lot of time telling you all about it later. I still have the binder, which for my first like 5 or 6 builds, I basically followed the process exactly. But it's kind of like every machine is at the beginning of every day, every machine is set up exactly. He got whatever jig to make it work, but it's not parts. It's all from scratch.
Okay.
Meaning you don't thickness the plates or anything like that. Like that stuff's done.
Yeah.
But you absolutely carve the bridge. You absolutely carve the neck. You absolutely bend the sides, glue everything in place. It was kind of I don't know, what do we call it? Like a Solaris, like a movable mold. It wasn't like a hard mold for the shape.
You're asking the wrong person.
You would move it, like you'd put the template in and set the mold based on your template. Okay. So you could use it for any shape. I tried to build one later and it didn't work. I ended up just doing hard like molds like everybody else. But side bending had like particular thoughts about side bending. I think we did like Everett style bender where he thought like the Fox style ones were kind of contraptions. He wanted to split the difference between like pipe bending and something that does everything for you. So you could still have the tactile thing. Really, really smart dude. I haven't talked to him in a minute, but like the school, I did the school for the 2 weeks. I left with the guitar. I was completely happy except for the shape of my heel. That is like, all right, I know the next one, that is the absolute thing that needs to be better, but it sounded good. I liked everything else about it. And then he was gracious enough, like a year or so later, when I was on number 5 or 6, I said, hey, can I just come back and hang out with you? Like not do the class? Like, is that an option? And he gave me this like sweet deal to just come back and just get a week of private tutelage. And at the same time, I visited with Trevor and Burton Leggett because they're both close enough by. They knew what I was up to and gave me like those other kind of things. Like Burton was the first person I saw using like a safety planer. Like he had just moved his shop to, I think, where he still is, and like had just started working at Harvard. Like, it was just overload, but so awesome to be able to like check in with those dudes. And that's what Trevor always said to me later. He's like, well, most of my customers don't turn around and start building their own guitars. And I was like, it's true.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you found this sort of like unicorn program that, you could take a job at a guitar store and then in 2 weeks learn at least rudimentarily how a guitar is constructed. Do you feel like that made you a better salesperson, better store employee?
Yeah, for sure. Because, it was a 2-part thing because Steve could always like throw it to me as like, that guy builds guitars. We don't really ask him.
Yeah.
So it's like so you got the guy that's been selling them forever and the guy that can build one from scratch. So it really is kind of like a 2-man thing. What it doesn't cover is the internet's influence and the forums and people's kind of like, I listened to your Summit talk recently with Joe Caruso and all those guys, like, and it was like, oh man, I feel so seen right now. Like Joe in particular, it's like, he's basically just like says what's in my mind at any given time. But but that kind of like the customer, it's retail, so the customer's always right. But it's like, are you not coming in here to like find some magic or find something new or like find some new dimension of this thing? But if you just want to play guitar, the one you have is probably fine. But if you want to know about the next thing, then like, how about you talk to us and like listen to us? So hearing Joe like and that whole crew kind of articulate that in the same time, the same time and space was so heartening and interesting.
Well, we'll get you up there next year if you come.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
How big of a deal? Forgive me for I have not spent any time in Pittsburgh. How much of Acoustic Music Works business is repair? And I imagine repairing someone else's guitar is totally different than knowing how to build this guitar that Whetstone taught you in a few different variations. Yeah,
for sure. We have a great builder in Pittsburgh named Chuck Bellino Instruments. And his no kidding, would put it up there with anything, like a totally glueless bolt-on neck, kind of like similar to Bourgeois, but having seen the way he puts it together, it's super thoughtful. And his quality of fit and finish as a one-man shop is just beyond. But the reason I bring it up is that he does not do repair. He's not one of these guys that has like the sideline of repair and he builds. He just builds. To where he, even if one of his guitars is out of warranty, would just be like, well, I'm pretty busy over here building.
Wow.
Take it to one of these many qualified repairmen or whatever. And so we tried. The reason I'm at my house and not at the shop right now is because I just came from the shop of a friend of ours named Chad Gerby, who recently came back home to Pittsburgh after being at Glazer for a while and then being in California for a while. But he came back with his Plek machine. So we got the Plekage now in Pittsburgh, which is really interesting to me. And he has, in the transition, picked up the slack of like when I'm actually just loading guitars into my car and running back and forth between two spaces. I was able to toss him some thoughtful, deep projects, and he totally just is crushing them, charging way more than we do. And that's fine. So the repair thing has always just been a secondary thing. Just like for a while, having a teaching room and stuff like that was part of it. Steve used to call it like the three-legged stool. It's like you got your retail, you got your repair, and you got your teaching. But it's very much now to where it's all any of us can do to concentrate on running a serious high-end guitar shop, photography, and all the communication that goes along with that. That, you don't want to like put your hands into something unless you're, ready to focus on it. With repair, especially, it's just been like, I really admire the people that like, that's their thing. That's their vocation. They're the tech. It's like when a lot of us are just techs by default. Know what we're doing. We know how to do it. We just have something else in our ear all the time to where we can't just get with the guitar and yep. Start it and finish it, Yep.
And I'm looking at just to get into the weeds on what Acoustic Music Works stocks. It's not just acoustic. You guys have electric guitars. A lot of brands we've got a lot of.
Change the name of your store. What was that? 2009.
Yeah.
He said Steve was at NAMM that year and saw like the curtain come down on that booth.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't carry electrics like you do now.
Yeah. I mean, that changed the course for a lot of stores. I mean, Dusty Strings here in Seattle, I think was similar, where it was like they were a core Collings dealer. and they had to be it changed the focus of the store. And I think in a cool way, it's neat to see now boutique amps alongside all the boutique acoustic guitars too.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And stuff like, I mean, TME, like, and like just fascinating watching their continued arc, and the kind of builders they bring in and stuff like that. Like we have a little bit of an aversion to shipping amps. Like we think that's above our pay grade in certain ways. But electric, we all love electric guitars. We all started on electric guitars and found our way back to acoustic guitars and acoustic music. So, and if it's Collings, we want it. Yeah. It's just like, it never disappoints. So
once they start making tube amps, you're going to be stuck shipping amps everywhere.
Has a guitar company started making amps, and like, you want to play those amps? I'm not saying they're not good amps, but you kind of want different brand names on the guitar and the amp, I think, other than Fender. Let's give it their Gibson in a certain era.
But you're a big dealer for Collings. I'm just going to rattle off a few of the brands that I think people who listen to this show or read our magazine know. Collings, Beard, Bourgeois, Huss and Dalton, Fairbanks, which we just had Dale in the new issue.
Oh, nice.
And then a bunch of other high-end brands like Eastman and McPherson and Furch. Is it Furch or Furk? Furk. Got to get the hard K in there.
All right. And it's Mason too, by the way, not Matan.
And how big is the store? I mean, how big is the new store? Let's just talk about the new store a little bit, because you just moved.
Yeah. Well, the square footage, like, we went from renting, the store started as like a 500 square foot, like, railroad, like just this little slender, narrow, long thing. And then the florist next door, that was for the first maybe 5 years. The florist next door went out of business. Steve took it. This is all before me. Steve took it, blew a hole in the wall, put a door in, and then it was, suddenly about 3.5 times as big in terms of square footage. His daughter went to Pitt, so he had the opportunity to rent the apartment above us. When she graduated, he kept it. So the apartment above us became the de facto, like, where all the boxes lived, where like Carlton cases lived, like all the stuff that we didn't need in the space. But the old store was always, you would walk in and have no idea what we actually did. There were maybe 80, 90 hooks, and those were split generously between banjos and acoustic guitars and electric guitars and mandolins and ukuleles. And everything else lived in their cases. So it was kind of like, we were also right on the corner between a few universities. So it was like a daily thing. Like, I'm just waiting for a pizza. I've always walked by this place. Like, and people coming in who weren't qualified whatsoever for what the business is, but it's an open door corner guitar store in the city. So of course they're going to drift in. And it was always that. And then what happened now is those 3 parcels turned into one giant box. Not giant, like, it's not huge gain in square footage, but it is a huge gain in like cubic footage. So we were able to go up as well as out and back and forth. And they all got to come out of their cases.
That's great.
It was like they were all like waiting for different amounts of time. So now people walk in, especially people that used to come to the old store, and they're just like, it's kind of overwhelming. And we're like, I don't know what we can do about that, but please come in.
Do you have even a rough sense of like how many instruments are out in the open right now? If you just
I do. Cause I designed, like, I ordered all the racks. I put up all the hooks, all that kind of stuff. So we went from maybe having, like I said, 80, 90 hooks. It's probably like 500 to 600.
Wow.
No, like it's pretty nuts.
And mostly higher end stuff.
Yeah. Like, with all due respect to Eastman, like they're in the mix, but we got a Collings wall.
Yeah.
Like we got a wall dedicated to Collings. Like there's nothing else like it.
And how many of these instruments sell roughly to people who can drive to your store versus you're shipping them?
I think it's still the same ratio overall. It's still probably 80% internet.
80% internet. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard Joe on the podcast say 60, and I thought he was probably being, I don't know. Hopefully he was just being exactly honest, but like we've always been closer to 80, if not more some months. But the thing is with this new store that's palpable is that people kind of don't want to leave without something.
Yeah.
They kind of feel like if it's not here, where the heck it's going to be, So I've been feeling that. So it's the opposite side of the overwhelm thing. It's like, there's so much, I don't even know what to do. We always dealt with that. Like once you've run to the back and pulled out 6 different Collings and all the cases are open on the floor, you're kind of used to somebody saying like, now I'm more confused than when I came in. And it's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. But now it's like, there's this kind of like feeling of like, all right, this place rocks. Like I feel like I'm in the right place. Like, I feel like if it's not here, you don't want to run back to Reverb. Like to quote unquote, do your research after being in our place. It's like, if you want to know it, we can tell you.
One of the things we talked about during that retail panel that you've referenced with Joe from Music Emporium and a couple others was sort of making a comfortable place for people to just hang out. If you've got this much inventory, are you watching people as they're now spending like multiple hours at your store versus before when they were kind of in and out?
Yeah, you're not watching so much as listening. You're kind of like listening because you're doing other stuff. Like the 3 people working there are answering emails or doing web copy or taking photographs or editing videos. Like we all have a day's work, whether somebody walks in or not, any given day because of how much inventory we're talking about. Like you turn around and there's 4 more Collings to photograph and describe and all that kind of stuff. So as far as the customers, they come in, and there's what we call the move, which is like, we have these racks that people might be familiar with from like Carter Vintage, these string swing, like freestanding racks. Ours are all on casters because we have shows. So we need to like wheel them away for shows. But this happened really, we've been open for about 3 weeks, and this only happened about a week ago, to where I was so sick of hearing a guitar bump into another guitar that I relieved each row of 2 guitars, and just a few inches made all the difference.
Sure.
But other than that, I've been in some stores, I won't name any names, but I've been in stores where somebody hands you a guitar and they stand there while you play it. And we never wanted to be that store. Mm-hmm. So it's real, like you get them in, you make them feel welcome, you make them kind of give them the lay of the land, ask them if there's something that particular they wanted, and make sure that they can get it in their hands. Cause we have stuff that you have to reach for now. Wasn't always, used to be running back for the case. And now it's just like, it's out, but it might be up there.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And then after that, just go nuts. Like people tend to be pretty respectful in this strata.
Sure.
And it's like, they don't walk in, it's been like a guitar store. Cool. It's, they kind of know what's going on, or like they pick up the first price tag and they'd be like, okay, I think I know what's going on here. And they slow their roll a little bit. But then, 3 or 4 people start playing at the same time. I'll tell you, it starts to feel like Guitar Center a little bit.
Of course, still a guitar.
Even with acoustic instruments, especially if one guy's singing.
You guys are obviously a big Collings dealer. Are there any brands that maybe I don't talk about often on this show that I'd be surprised how well they sell at your store?
It's a good question. I mean, Collings is still the most phone calls, still kind of top dog.
Mm-hmm.
Fairbanks took a second to click in. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like, they come and they're gone. Like we don't get to know them as well. Like certain Collings, because we go so deep, we end up knowing them like pretty well.
And you're doing Fairbanks, but not Iris.
Not Iris.
Okay.
I don't have room for Iris.
Okay.
It's just, Adam and I talked about this, and I hope he gets it and knows how much I love the stuff. But it's like, listen, if I was an Iris dealer, I'd want to have 30. I don't want to have 5 because there's so many options. You know what I mean? And they're inventing new things all the time and kind of like adding to the spec list. Like, this about Collings, it's like a dizzying number of options, and we're ordering them a year and a half ahead of time. So when Adam came back to me, we were the first Iris dealer, like the very first, like number 6,
okay.
Like right after the concept kicked off. And it was, as I understood it, Adam looking around saying, I saw what Collings did with Waterloo.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can do that. And it was cool because it was kind of a similar jumping off point, but not tonally, not slavish to old stuff at all. The Waterloo sounded like old, dry, honky guitars in the best way. The Irises sounded like really simply presented high-end guitars. That model, of course, now, like with Cirrus and everything, like that model has been kind of appropriated a million different ways to everybody's benefit. But it kind of like, it came and it went in that very first, like we're talking about like 2018, 2019. And then of course, pandemic and all that kind of stuff. And Adam called back a couple of things that we still had in stock after selling a few. And he's like, we didn't know, but Dale was now in the picture. Like Dale was getting brought up to there. And I think Adam saw that this whole thing was going to get way bigger and way better.
Mm-hmm.
So he called back the ones we had kind of as prototypes. And then it was just like when he came back around a few years ago, I was like, dude, it's been a while. And we actually have a local customer who like used to play music with him in New York City and stuff like, so that kind of is how the relationship kicked off. But when he came back around, he's like, dude, I feel like you're the only shop that we should be in that we're not. And I looked at his dealer list and I was like, yeah, you got like about 50 dealers, and was just like, it's nothing against the guitars. It's just like, this was even before we bought the building and decided to move.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have room to represent your brand.
Yeah.
I just don't. But I love a good Gibby style, like passionate about Kevin Kopp, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, can we be a Fairbanks dealer?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, any way we can be in that shop, let's do it. And we proceeded to order a bunch of Fairbanks. And those have been like, I think my opening orders are still hitting now a couple of years in, so that just tells you what the kind of planning of it is. And it was always, it was never anything against Iris. It was always just like, can't represent it properly. We're not going to represent it. You have like plenty going on. Let's see if we can get Fairbanks to jump off the racks.
Yeah,
they are, they're wonderful.
Is that inventory issue why you also don't have the obvious, which would be Martin guitars?
That's probably a little more down to the personality of the owner, Steve. he famously tells the story of how he got his first Collings, which was he had bought his Martin at Music Emporium in Pittsburgh. I don't know how much they talk about how they started here.
Yeah.
Bought it from Stu Cohen, needed a new top within a few years because it bellied up like crazy, which Martin replaced it. He probably took it off the rack and bought it because it sounded so good. And it's probably like the top was too thin.
Sure.
And it just like was humming. So Martin replaced the top. Steve got it back. He said, it's not the same guitar at all as the guitar I bought. And that's when he started looking around. This was back in his corporate life. And by then eBay was starting to bubble up, and he kind of fancied himself a amateur guitar store. It's like what a Reverb store is now, quote unquote, a Reverb shop, gear bazaar, whatever you want to call it. Back then you could be on eBay and know what you're talking about and basically buy and sell instruments in a pretty respectable way. And that's what he did. And that's kind of how he heard about Collings. Bill Collings sent him a Polaroid of a guitar, and Steve said, I'll take it. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm just showing you that I make guitars. Like, you can order one now, you'll have it in a year. And so Steve got something like number 326 or something like that. And then kind of like the moment of clarity of just like, oh my God, like the thing that I grew up in has kind of given way to this new thing. And it's the Richard Hoovers and the Husses and the Daltons and the Collings and the Bourgeois, like that kind of late 70s into the 80s. And those guys, by the time Steve was getting deep into it in the mid 80s, those guys were making great guitars, to even where when Bill was still with us, I think it was my first trip to Collings, maybe 2013 or something like that. They happened to have number 2, like Collings number 2. It was like a D42 kind of, it was pearly. Headstock wasn't as angular.
Yeah.
It was a little softer, but I swear to you, that thing sounded like Collings still sound. Like he had it from the jump.
Yeah.
That kind of, we describe it as the kind of like switching from tape to digital or from film to, like, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's like, it's pretty clear what Bill Collings accomplished through his consistency and his tenacity and his quality control. And he had a voice in his head, obviously, because it still exists, even though he's long gone. So, that kind of built the foundation for our thing. And when Gibson would come around and say, to answer your question, when Gibson or Martin would come around and say, like, all you need to do is like face 60 of these. And we're like, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
That ain't going to happen. Guys, we're fine. We're fine. Did you look around and realize that you already have like 3 dealers within a few miles of here?
Well, that too. Yeah. That's always a concern, right?
Yeah.
What is there any rhyme or reason? You said most of the time when customers come in, you guys are on the phone. I know that came up during the retail panel as well. Is there any rhyme or reason, or would I be shocked in terms of like how many guitars at what price points get sold over the phone or internet versus like, are people coming to the store to try out an $8,000 Collings versus just ordering it online? Or is it like, it doesn't matter, like people are just buying stuff?
Yeah, it's a shocking, for the price points, it's a shocking amount of people just throwing it in their shopping cart and buying it without without asking any questions.
Oh, okay. Even further weird.
Pro tip, everybody. Everybody who uses Reverb, like Reverb is a giant corporate entity, and they have to charge you sales tax because they meet the threshold. We are a small business. And if you're outside of Pennsylvania, we do not have to charge you sales tax vis-a-vis the Wayfair decision. So like me waking up and seeing that at 2 a.m, somebody put a $10,000 guitar in their shopping cart on Reverb and paid $700 in sales tax or something, California or Texas, it just blows my mind. And then the secondary blow your mind is like, they didn't ask a single question. So so we might also be dealing with just different levels, social like stratas, just people. It's like, if they have money like that, like I can't argue with it.
Are you saying rich people are lazy? Is that what we're getting to?
No, I'm saying they found it the way they found it.
Yeah. And
you want to have the conversations, of course, and make sure it's right, because everybody has the opportunity to return it. So you want to make sure it's the right thing. So I'm saying it's weird when they never ask a question.
Of course.
Like a single question in this kind of price, the money we're talking, like for $2,000, it's weird if somebody doesn't ask a single question,
Well, and if you have 500 plus guitars in your inventory at any one time, I mean, I would just want to ask point blank, is there a better version of this guitar than the one I'm looking at right now? From you, like in your inventory, is there a better triple O or whatever, Well,
that brings in a kind of a very like kind of fuzzy idea when people call and say, what's your favorite? And then like apropos of like nothing, like price range or anything. Well, what's your favorite? And it's like, what does that have to do with you? You called for you. We're talking about you, and it's like, I find myself saying the same things all the time of like in a lot of different directions. Like I heard back to that panel again, I heard it referenced. And again, this is like feeling so seen. It's like people calling and be like, I just can't get along with a 1 11/16. It's got to be 1 3/4 because of this physical thing. And it's just like, really? Like, it wasn't made for you. This shape, like you weren't consulted. Like you didn't do stress tests to develop this neck shape. So it's a lot of dreaming, and it's a lot of hero worship.
Yeah.
And usually when somebody buys a guitar without asking any questions, it's because that guitar looks like the guitar of their dreams.
Yeah.
Like the sound only can come from them. So it looks like the guitar of their dreams, or it's not replicating something they already have. And it's just like, I turn around and say, my last 10 guitars have been mahogany, and I don't know if I'll ever buy a guitar that isn't mahogany. Mahogany rules. Yeah. I don't need a Koa guitar just over there to justify having another guitar or whatever. So the road trips have been amazing. Like people know about the new building. They want to see the new presentation. They come in, and like I said, they kind of don't want to leave unless they just didn't get it.
Yeah.
Like I love that self-control too. Of like, you don't buy it just to buy something. Like it should kill you. You should like be awake sleeping, like not being able to sleep because that guitar that you played in the store, but that's this thing for all time. You capture somebody and like, but the default now is people just like, well, I just got to go do a little more research. Like I sold a Fairbanks today and the guy, great customer, bought a million things from me. Like we get each other very, very well, but he hadn't heard of Fairbanks before. And when he hung up the phone 2 days ago, he was like, I just need to wrap my head around this. I've never heard of this guy. You're saying it's this great. And I said, it really is. And go for it. And you're like, let me know. And he called Dale. They had a nice conversation. He called me back. He's like, yeah, he's a real guy. He's awesome. Let's do it. And it is kind of that too. Like the other part of that is people calling and saying, can I get some regular photos?
Oh,
like, oh, so not in the photo booth with the really expensive cameras?
Yeah.
Can I just, it's like, can you play it over the phone? No, I will not play it over the phone.
Oh, okay.
So it's this kind of like, is it real? Like,
wow.
Thing that run into, and that might be a part of like just how much money is changing hands and stuff like that. Like they kind of need you to close the circuit on the thing being an actual thing, like show it to me in a light that reminds me of how I would see it versus in a photo booth. I kind of get it. The sound clip things I get too, of course. it's just a time thing. You can't do a video for every guitar.
Yeah.
Like how can, like of a quality, like, so, you know, it's interesting that way. And I usually would tell people, like, when we're actually talking about an $8,000 guitar over the phone and they're like, well, it's just tough, you can't play it first. And the return policy is established and all that kind of stuff. It's like, would it kill you to fly out here?
I know. I was going to say, people should make it a destination. I don't know. You need a little travel guide to Pittsburgh or something. I don't know.
But then it's like, no, I'm very busy. And it's like, of course you are. Yeah. You obviously have done well for yourself. Hopefully you're a worker. Hopefully you're kicking it, rocking, taking care of your business. And that's why we're even talking, because you can afford this stuff. But it's like, if you want to play the one and all the other ones just to make sure the one is the one, like, it's not a crazy idea to spend a night in the hotel and like have Permane Brothers or whatever you want to do, like to tell people you were in Pittsburgh, go to a game. So,
wow. Yeah. Okay. The events that you're doing, the concerts, I don't know how frequent they are, but you've talked about having to move guitars around for these shows. Are these shows more to build community and celebrate the artists that you love, or are you actually like making money as a venue? Like, how does that all work out?
Exactly zero money. We're not a venue. We don't keep anything.
Yeah.
Anything. It all just passes through. It started with Glenn Jones,
incredible guitarist who everyone should know. Yeah.
At the old space, like within the first 6 months that I was working there, and there wasn't a tradition of having shows, but it was just house concert. And I was like, all right, well, we have like, I think enough chairs to like have 20 people in here or whatever. So we had Glenn Jones play, and that was the very first one. And 2 weeks ago, Glenn Jones played at the new store, and and it was as good as ever. But it's really, Pittsburgh is sneaky in that there's always a lot going on. Like there's always something to do. Like there's always shows, any kind of show. You can do a rock show, folk show, house concert, blues, kind of anything you want to do. You can do any night of the week, most weeks. Like, and the weird thing coming from Boston was that if I tried to have a show at, say, TT the Bears or Middle East Up for my band in Boston, it would be like, hello. It would be, when was the last time you played? Well, we played the other place 3 months ago. And I was like, none of your friends are coming. No draw. Like, we're not doing it. So when I came to Pittsburgh and saw that local bands were playing 2 or 3 times a month in Pittsburgh, it kind of like blew my mind. And it's kind of never changed.
Huh.
The things that you would pin a local band to are ongoing. Like Glenn Jones and Liam Grant were on a tour, wanted to play in Pittsburgh, wanted to do it with me. And I was like, all right, that happens to be our grand opening week. So good timing. You guys are going to kind of wrap up grand opening week. And we had shows every night, but the rest of them were put together specifically just for the event, which is, I normally wouldn't. I wouldn't have a show just to have a show. I'd have a show if somebody that I knew or a friend of a friend was going on a tour and needed something friendly. Yeah. At this level of like kind of, I have 50 chairs. I have 50 folding chairs. They live in our stage.
Okay.
Stage has little hatch areas in it to where I can wheel the guitars away. I can open up the stage. I can pull out the chairs. I can put them back at the end. So, I hope that it's building community. I know it is, but it's one of these things where you're getting people from every corner of everything. It's just like maybe the connective tissue is acoustic something.
Yeah.
Like I don't listen to or play bluegrass music, but heck, if I haven't presented a few bluegrass bands in the last month. you know, and the same could be said for old time. The same could be said for country. It's like, these aren't like, I mean, there's stuff that's in my overall wheelhouse, but you know, it's not just ragtime, guys. Like,
no, I figure as much. Rest in peace, Shakey's Pizza. What
the overall thing of like this? There's a huge underground, and there's apparently a lot of people that I've met over a lot of years that I absolutely still want to hear play live music. And it's kind of that. It's kind of like just this kind of like rolling over of like, oh my God, Glenn Jones. And then Glenn Jones 13 years later, sleeping in my same guest room. Like, and like, I don't want Glenn to play anywhere else. I want him to play for me. With me in my place. So there's a certain kind of, there's a cap to it. You know, if more than 100 people want to see you play, then there's no reason you should be in my store. Not want to see you play, but are going to happen upon you playing. Like, then you probably shouldn't be in my store. You should be in someplace like established. But the pop-up part of it and the house show, extended house show thing is the thing.
And how many shows a month are you trying to do, or is it average out to?
Again, not trying to do any.
Well, you're doing them.
They just appear at a rate. Like, if we take September as a kind of total outlier, where we had a show every night for our grand opening week and a bunch of shows, like Susie and Eric Thompson wanted a show, and I said yes, and Ernie opened that, and it was amazing. Asheville Mountain Boys were coming back through after an amazing show in the other space. We said yes, it was amazing. That's the thing, is these things always end up being amazing. So it's very hard to say no usually, and it ends up being, in normal times, something like 3 or 4 a month.
Okay,
where you wouldn't put up a calendar to where ASCAP would start sneaking around and being like, well, if you're a venue, we got to talk, you know?
Yeah.
ASCAP, you didn't hear that, but no, but it's all original stuff. It's like, it's nothing for the sake of, it's no covers, it's no open mics. It's all just people like trying to run around and make their way and bring their music around. I don't know. It's just, it feels right for me, you know, for what it's kind of like the stuff that the places I'd want to play. So just do that.
I love it. I'm looking at your website. I'm seeing a lot of new arrivals. I'm seeing some consignments. Obviously, you guys are taking some guitars in on consignment or trade, it would seem.
Consignment's huge.
Yeah. Does this website get updated every single day, or do savvy customers know that on Tuesday is when this website gets updated with all the new arrivals?
That'd be amazing if you could say, I'm going to come in today and do X. It kind of ends up being batches.
Okay.
You know, I remember when new records came out on Tuesdays, and then one day they came out on Fridays.
I know. I never understood that either. Yeah.
Or the artist is big enough that they just announce it 24 hours earlier, and then
that's when you know you've made it. Yeah.
So it's definitely kind of in batches. Like, you try to like not just like trickle them out. You try to like somebody like all of us, all of our websites. It's the same thing. It's just people just have them bookmarked. They come to new arrivals every day. Like, it's like their first break at work or whatever, you know, they just like do a scan. I do it. Like, I go to Griffin and TME and Mass Street Music every day, just kind of in a break, you know, or to like stumble upon that thing that I was like, oh my God, like, cause I never go to other guitar stores. I have mine. But so it ends up being kind of batches. Like yesterday we put 3 Beards. I should say I put 3 Beard square necks out at once. And I was like, this is a weird case of like, those things have been here for a minute. It's not first in, first out. That's the other kind of weird thing about this world, that people are like, that thing's been there for 6 months. What's wrong with it? Are you kidding? Like, I saw that the day it came in. I haven't thought about it since. We're talking about hundreds of instruments. Like, you just have to have the exact right thing for the exact right person when they exactly want it, or when they have the wherewithal to have it. So it's kind of more like batches. Like, we have the photo pile will all of a sudden have 20 or 25 cases waiting for photography. And that's a couple of long days of photography and a couple of long days of editing photographs. Our media manager is a guy named Adam Russo, who used to work with me at Pleinview. Like, and that was a thing. And he takes care of all that stuff. So he funnels that stuff to me. I get it out in due time. It'll kind of depend on like what else has been out. It's always good to have something in your pocket, like one that isn't like this Fairbanks that I sold yesterday, was instantly my favorite guitar in the store. And instantly word got out about it and people tried to buy it. And there's like a bunch of stories that happened around this guitar before it ever hit the website, before we ever even looked at the spec sheet and reminded ourselves of what exactly this guitar was. It was kind of like our little tiny version of something going viral. It's happening right now with a Waterloo as well. But that guitar finally sold after finally hitting the website, being there for 2 days. And it had nothing to do with it hitting the website. It had to do with a customer calling and saying like, I'm looking for this kind of thing. And me saying, have you seen the Fairbanks? Because it sounds like the thing you want. And him saying, what's a Fairbanks? and then kind of like, just be like, well, go look at it and then call me back. We'll talk about it. So, it's every day you just come in and do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the fastest turnaround time ever in terms of it hits the website, a customer calls you minutes later?
It could be a minute.
A minute.
It can be a minute. Like the heady days of like the 470 JL coming out for the first time. Like,
yeah,
we didn't
have one right now, right?
We have a few right now because now the hardtail's out. Now everybody has one. So it's like, I mean, like, you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
It was the same with the acoustic too. It's like for a while they were all pre-sold. Waterloo, when Waterloo first came out, we had a list, had to be 25 or 30 people, like pre-sold, like, and they had to kind of like deliver them. And then like eventually it kind of normalized. And now, to be totally honest, everybody's kind of a little jumpy about everything. Like it's never going to be exactly right. Everybody's like wants a new guitar because they want the rush of the new guitar, but guys in our price point definitely don't need it in most cases. And the dopamine hits are just, they're not going to last. So the quick trigger thing, it doesn't bother me if something hangs around for a little while, because then we get to know it really well. We get to compare it to everything else in the store. We get to kind of like understand what place it takes, because they're all good.
Yeah.
They're all good. So, or great, really. And so it's like, well, you have this, but you also have this. And it's like, yeah, if there was only one way to do it, like there isn't. Like there's the last week, I call it the last 5%. It's like, if you're 95% there, like you got your plan, you got your specs, you got your kind of aesthetics. Like also, it's like, if you're 95% there and you're looking for that last 5%, we can talk like ever about that last 5%, whether it's a 32nd of an inch here or there, or whether it's scale length, or whether it's a hand rubbed sunburst versus a sprayed sunburst, whether it's like a lacquer, or whether it's like a relicking and stuff like that is so big now. It's like, does it really? It was torrefaction 10 years ago. Does it really make a difference? And everybody back then was like, how are they going to hold up? And it's like, it's all been proven now. It's like they hold up just fine. But everybody's just looking for that last 5% just to get through the day, to get inspired, like, and all that. And it's kind of really what it all boils down to, right? You know?
Well, that was another Fretboard Summit session that will be in the pages of our next issue. So it's actually 3%, and it was with Mark Stutman and TJ. What last question? You referenced very briefly Pleinview guitars, which you and your assistant Adam, who now is with you. What can we learn? What are you willing to teach us about what you learned from the experience of trying to have a guitar company in the guitar retail space?
Pleinview kind of blew up. I think I'm using blew up in the opposite way that I mean.
Exactly. They imploded.
Burned out, imploded. Yeah. As a mixture of the pandemic and the like kind of almost immediate change of everybody's habits, and some personal like life things too, like between the concerned parties. But what really happened was my daughter was of a certain age to where I had this great routine for a few years. Like I would drop her off at daycare. I'd go to the shop. I'd with intention make sawdust from 9:30 in the morning till about 1 in the afternoon. Then I'd open the doors, and then it was retail time. Adam kind of got on board with that. And we had these, like, again, based on just life stuff at the time, we could devote Saturday mornings to it together. We could devote Monday nights to it together. We had like rituals. And the pandemic came along. My daughter got older. Adam ended up having a son and getting married. And it just, everybody's life got twisted up. And the retail side went nuts. Like nuts, to where you walk in at 9:30 in the morning, you want to make sawdust. And it's like, but I have so much to do. I have so much to do. Like I have so many orders to fulfill, as it were, whether that's answering an email or actually packing an instrument or setting up an instrument or repairs or all that kind of stuff. So I love that period of time because I got to put guitars in the hands of my like absolute favorite players and friends. Like everybody kind of like jumped in. Nathan Salzberg, Steve Gunn, Ross Hammond, first three that come to mind. It was beautiful. And to see, you see those things like in Fretboard Journal, like seeing Steve Gunn in your office playing a guitar that I built, like was nuts to me. And then hearing it. And same thing with Salzberg and like music videos for Joan and stuff. It was a trip. It was wonderful. And it's still to this day, like garners calls, but it's like, it's gotten so slow just in terms of where, like, I want to do it all with great intention. And I'm just not like, I'm barely moonlighting as a guitar builder. Like it's not my job. So I want to do my job really, really well, first and foremost. And then the guitar building, it'd be very beautiful to be like, I'm very obsessed with the craft and I'm very and I am, but it's just like, I have a job to do and there's only this many hours in the day. And now my daughter's 11 and like, there's just so many things in life. Yeah. I'm sure it's the same way with the magazine. It's like, you have to pick your battles.
For sure. And I mean, building a guitar is just not only a completely different side of the shop, but it's a completely different side of your brain.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sawdust.
Yeah.
So to do it in the old store, that's another like dimension of it, is the old store, like it was kind of tucked in the back. And now it's kind of like, it's right there out in the open. It's like, I probably need way better dust collection than I have if I was going to fire this like machine up again. Like And so we get it done. You know, we get it by. It's like I have to drop some pour fill on a build today. You know, it's like I have one that's almost it's like almost ready to cross the finish line, and then I got to go make one for old Nick Chalace in Detroit.
Oh, nice.
Because he has my Healy signature model that I talked about earlier, because he called me for, you know, I guess every couple of weeks for a couple of years. He's like, what do you got in a small jumbo OM? Like, what do you got in Addy mahogany? And I was like, I got one that is amazing that I'll just give to you for a while.
Yeah.
And so I finally sent him my Healy, and he was like, you ain't getting this back unless you build me one.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so cool. And he's recorded a million videos on it. Like, Nick is consummate player, teacher, friend, dude, like amazing dude. But wouldn't you know it, Trevor Healy sent me the mold, sent me the bending form. I have all the process pics from when mine was made. So I get to, as the next thing, try to recreate my own guitar.
It's awesome.
Or just tell Nick, just keep it.
That's so awesome. Wow. Well, we covered a lot of ground, Raymond.
Yeah,
your story, the guitars, the store.
I'll write you something, I promise.
Yeah, you're going to start writing for us. I'm going to hold you to that. And obviously people should find their way to Pittsburgh and see what 500 to 600 guitars you happen to have in the store that day.
Yeah, it's all are welcome. We tried an appointment kind of thing in the interim.
Yeah.
And it just, we couldn't get our heads around it. We couldn't get our customers' heads around it. So it's like, as of this recording, we are just the same hours we always were, but we're in a new spot. You need to just don't go to the old spot, come to the new spot. I think it's all up to date on Google and Apple.
Okay. I love it. And I can't thank you enough. Congratulations. It's so cool to hear of a store growing.
Yeah, it's great. We're very fortunate. We're very lucky, and we wouldn't be here without you guys and Collings, and it's, you know, it's a very special thing that we all do.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta always remember it's not a hobby is such a dirty word, you know. It's like we all kind of like are doing this for as our thing until we're dead.
Yes, it's true. It is true. Well, Raymond, thank you so much. This was a joy, and it's great to finally see you.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. That was my chat with Raymond Morin from Acoustic Music Works. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you love this show as much as I do, leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. It'll go a long way towards helping others find the show.